Hey everyone, Brandon here, Mr. B's Fix It. Today I want to talk to you about my Fisher Poly caster. Love the unit, not crazy about the proprietary wiring system on it. Mine's broken. Let's see what I did about it. So in stock form, this is the spreader module that lives on the back. And you've got a battery, spinner, conveyor, ground, and then you have these ports on the bottom. And this port hooked up to a proprietary type of connector that went out and told that went off to your controller and told everything what to do. Well, this part we believe is malfunctioned in our unit. We have attempted everything we could. We looked at wiring, we looked at this unit, we looked at the controller, and we believe that it is this controller that's having this unit that's having the problem. Our wiring was getting kind of old and beat up as well. I looked at replacing the wiring. Wasn't really crazy about what the prices were for this unit or the wiring. I'm halfway into a new unit. Spreader module, you know, so it's hard to say just which one of the parts might be damaged. So this is what I've come up with. I will include a still photo of this in case if you guys want to kind of look at it and see how I did it. But this is what I came up with. I made my own little diagram, and it's pretty simple. The spreader is going to have power and ground going to it from a speed controller or a potentiometer. You look up potentiometers if you're not sure what they are. I'll show you one here in a minute. Those come from the battery into the truck to the dash, where the potentiometer or speed controller will send it out to the spreader, the spinner, right? Then we've got power that's going to come and go to my dash again to a push button at the dash for the conveyor. That's the bottom of the machine that spreads the dirt out onto it, right? Positive and ground goes all the way back to that solenoid that I've showed you earlier. Goes to the solenoid, mounted on the salter. Positive and ground goes off to the conveyor from the solenoid, right? Push button in the dash that actually sends a signal to the solenoid telling it to complete the circuit, turning it on. Now, fusible links up here at the battery side on all of these, on both of the positive sides for both the conveyor and the spreader, the spinner, okay? So potentiometer, this is a potentiometer. Now this is just an eBay find potentiometer. It's not a very expensive unit, but it seems to work fine for what I'm trying to do here. The way that it wires in is you've got two wires that go out to the motor, whatever it is you're trying to control, your positive and your negative, and then you've got two wires that come from your power source. They're labeled as such. See, input and motor, right? Positive side, negative side. It's really that simple. We make sure you have a fuse though. So proof of concept is all this is. I've put a battery here and hooked it up to see how it's going to work, right? My wires go off to the spinner. So you'll recognize this if you have a Fisher controller. This is the spinner, belt on the bottom, always have a spare belt. Shaft goes down, spins the spreader, right? This yellow stuff, by the way, is just some overspray from some other work we were doing in here. Actually painting the blade. So that's what one of these looks like. And they spin. And if you just give them full power, if you just hook it directly up to a battery, this thing goes a million miles an hour. It'll almost shake itself to death. And it's way too fast, and it just casts the sand all over the place, sand, salt, whatever it is you're using, way too far all over. So we've hooked this up. So let's give it a little test, see what we got. Okay, so battery leads, negative, positive, going into the potentiometer. Clicks on, little light indicator, kind of nice. So now we'll turn the dial. Really nice and slow right there. That's what I'm looking for. And as we adjust the dial, we adjust the speed. Clicks off, indicator light went off. Going to be mounting this on the dash. So So here are the wire ends that we've run. We ran them from underneath of the truck, from the back of the spreader up to here, and then we ran two out to the battery. Here we are at the battery location. So we have a large wire positive lead going from the battery, negative lead coming from the battery. We put a fusible link in line with our positive wires for both the spreader and for the caster. Two different units on the back of it. Let's take a look at those and see what we're talking about. Back of the truck now. So what you have is this large motor here that turns this gearbox, which makes the conveyor turn, feeds onto the caster, right? So here's what I've done. I have taken the wires and hooked them up to a solenoid. Two wires coming off of the motor that turns the conveyor, hooked them up to a solenoid. Ran the solenoid into the truck, or the wires rather, from the solenoid into the truck. I put them on a large connector here, similar to what you'd use on a winch. So I ran those large wires all the way up to the battery. They're actually the original wires from the original wiring. I reused them and purposed them for this. Ran them back here, put them on a winch style connector, and otherwise ran a wire to the solenoid, grounded one side, positive the other side. By the way, if you switch the polarity on the two, this will run backwards. So something to keep in mind. If you wanted to put a polarity switch up instead, you could run it forward or backwards if you wanted to do it that way. I've run mine on a push button switch. So I'm going to feed it when I want to, feed the sand or the salt onto the spinner. Some of the wires you'll note at the back is a trailer wire. I've just used a trailer connector because I mounted some lights in the back of my spreader, make it a little more visible and help me out a little bit. Okay, so here we are in the cab of the truck. I'll give you a little idea of what we're done here. So I've hooked up the potentiometer right here. Two wires come in to give it power, two wires go out. Those two wires are fished underneath the truck and go out to the spinner. We'll go back and look at that in a minute. What I've also got here on the dash is, well, these are just some lights on the roof rack, and this is a push button that will feed the sand out from the belt onto the spinner. We'll get this all mounted up here shortly and take it from there. Let's go to the back and take a look. This is the back of my truck. What we've got here in this area here is the hookups. So I use a trailer light plug to hook up all the lights that I have on the back of the sander. Can't have too many lights, truck lights, and then these lights are here as well. Up on the top we have a third brake light, and this is a beacon light. Flashes when the lights are all flashed on the truck. Here's the spinner. The motor's up inside of there, goes down here, and makes this go. Here's our hookups. Hook up here. The excess wire I've just sort of pinned up here out of the way for now, goes down to the other two wires that come off the potentiometer. All right, let's see how it works. And so that's my salter truck, plow truck. Plow's not on right now, but you get the idea. So that potentiometer, I bought it off the internet, and I think it cost me $15, something along those lines. That and the wiring was literally more. And I don't know, it was $10 a roll or something like that. I used 3 or 4 rolls of wire. I wanted a nice, continuous, heavily insulated wires from the front to the back. A couple of fusible links on it on the battery. Potentiometer mounted underneath the dash, the feed switch and push button for the feed belt, and that way I can turn it on, leave it on continuously, or push the button to give it a blast whenever I want it. The speed of that was really not that important because we have a chute control in the back, and because it really doesn't travel all that fast anyway. Then the spinner, that was the big thing, controlling the speed of the spinner. Now you could get a potentiometer and control the speed of the belt as well if you wanted to. and hook that up as well. But either way, I don't think there's any reason to have these proprietary systems that cost a small fortune to repair or replace. So that's how I fixed my poly spreader on my truck. All right, happy sanding.